Hello, everybody. We're going to be dealing with someone that most people should know that are actually real jazz fans. His name is Alfred. We never use that name because the rest of his name is more important. Alfred McCoy Tyner. Born December 11th, 1938 in the hot, swinging town of Philadelphia, PA, baby. Oh, yeah. He was one of 3 children born to parents who lived right there in the South Side and did all the things that people do and had all the problems that families who lived in that area had. But what was beautiful about it is that we all lived there together. And there were a lot of musicians in the area. So very early on, young McCoy had an interest in music. And this was reinforced by his mom, who was, by profession, a beautician. So one of the things she did, since, she was called babysitting him most of the time, is she installed a piano in her beauty salon and probably encouraged him to do little impromptu concerts for her clients. Once he developed to a certain level, she decided to up the ante and send him to the Granoff School of Music right there in Philadelphia. Now, Granoff was started by a Ukrainian immigrant. Kind of timely, isn't it? Yeah, Ukrainian immigrant who came to this country to teach music. And what did this immigrant do to us? Well, he taught everything: music theory, composition, all the instruments, especially piano, and he taught jazz and classics as well. Some of his jazz students include the great Dizzy Gillespie, Sonny Fortune, and the legendary John Coltrane. You see how this story works a little further down in my narration here. Now, he got great skills. He made a whole lot of progress. And then he got some real motivation, because living right around the corner was a great musician, bebop piano player. Oh yeah, Bud Powell. Man, Bud could play classical, jazz, everything. He was the man. When he showed up in New York City, everybody went, oh man, in walked Bud. They even made a song called In Walked Bud, because when he walked in, all the other piano players would put their hands in their pockets. Yeah. Well, McCoy had a chance to hang out with Bud. He lived right there in the neighborhood. That's right. And then later on, he encountered the great Thelonious Monk and picked up that raised hand accent to punctuate things he believed were important, melodically, harmonically, or just in the spirit of making the music swing. So this was his formative years. Let's see. Grammar school, formal education. Bud Powell, woohoo, swinging, baby, top of the line. And then Thelonious Monk, creative and different. And these influences would follow him. Now, the first professional gig he played was a group called the Jazz Tech. Art Farmer, and I kind of forget the sax player, but he was also a great composer. And that group lasted for a pretty good while. But then another one of his neighbors in Philly, notice I say neighbors, all these guys live right there in the neighborhood. John Coltrane gave him a call and said, hey man, I'm putting together a band. This was somewhere around 1960. He said, I got my drummer. I got this guy Elvin Jones, man. He's off the chain. I'm still working with bass players, but we'll keep at it till we get the right one. Yeah. What I need is a piano player, and you are it. What? You are it. I want you to join my group. Well, what happened? Between 1960 and 1965, McCoy recorded over 30 albums with John Coltrane, who was on the trajectory of a rocket. His music was growing and going so fast and developing new concepts so fast that at one point there were people who said he wasn't even playing jazz anymore. So in the middle of his experimentation, he did what we would call calm and easy listening jazz. He did a piece called Ballads, that's what it was, just nice, slow song, late night candle and wine music. And then he upped the ante even more by befriending a young singer in the neighborhood named Johnny Hartman and doing that Immortal album, John Coltrane and Johnny Hartman. And if you haven't heard that, you have missed the greatest late night candlelight and wine music ever recorded. Now he also recorded live at the Village Vanguard and A Love Supreme and so many other just masterpieces, things that every jazz student has to study as a rite of passage. Remember, this is done between 1960 and 1965. McCoy was a part of changing the face of jazz, not just bebop or hard bop, but avant-garde, free jazz, experimentation here and there, fusion, and the whole thing. And that's where we come to a split. And that's where we come in 1965 when Brother Tyner decided he had to leave because Train's experimentations were getting so far out, at least for him, that he didn't feel he was making a contribution because he had 2 drummers in the band and sometimes 2 bass players in the band. Train was looking for all kinds of sounds and rhythms and this and that. And McCoy didn't feel that he was making the contribution he always made. In early years, around 63, 64, if McCoy was not available for a gig, Train would play the gig with no piano. He'd rather have a band with no piano than to have anyone sitting there playing besides McCoy Tyner. So when McCoy quit, it was blow. But the music that Train was playing had evolved to the point that the musicians who've been with him the longest, Elvin Jones and McCoy, they both left at the same time. And the band continued to evolve into some more experimental things that Train did. And soon, unfortunately, Train got sick and passed away. But McCoy said, okay, let me regroup. So he went back to the straight ahead jazz, kind of bop, hard bop things he was doing at the beginning of the journey with Train. And he did it with his own group, a trio. He also did some solo piano things because remember, he's classically trained. He can play the piano. So he also had a very wide range that he could feel in terms of styles and textures and you name it. And he had a very big interest. He could do ballads. He could do things that rival kind of R&B. But here are a couple of things he never did. He never embraced electronic keyboards like a lot of jazz players did. Chick Corea and like Joe Zawinul. He never did that. He didn't want that as a part of his work. And he never embraced synthesizers. Now he tried it. He used them sparingly here and there just to see what was available and decided that everything he needed he had with his 10 fingers and a real piano. And that was his journey for the most of his career. Now, the next few years, he was all about trios, solo piano, and since he was with Blue Note, he got to record with all the great Blue Note artists. You name them, if they were on Blue Note, they were there with him. Whether it was Horace Silver or Lee Morgan or you name him, he was there. And he probably participated in a lot of those projects. The other thing is that he started to take on what I call Pan-Africanism in his music. You got to remember, 60s, 70s, 80s, black people are actually discovering that we're really black, and we actually have a African heritage. So he started doing music that gave homage to that part of his spirit. And he started using what I will call world instruments. On one of the famous albums, he used a koto from Japan. And you say, well, why that if you talk about Africa? Because the koto is a stringed instrument with 13 strings and 13 individual bridges that you can move and tune. And that particular instrument is normally about 60 to 70 inches tall. And you can find versions of the instrument all over the Middle East and into Africa as far as the Sahara. So this is like, what shall I say? If you're a traveler, if you are a meanderer, it's a lot easier to travel with a koto than it is with a piano. Now, McCoy also had a great respect for the European tradition. And after all, he was taught by a European at the ground school. So obviously he learned respect for early European music. And on an album, I think it's called Trident. Maybe wrong, but don't quote me on that. But I do know that he used instruments that jazz musicians never used. Strictly Baroque and Romantic. We talk Baroque and Renaissance. We're talking about the harpsichord and the celeste. Yeah, he used those in jazz. No one ever heard that. So he was experimenting, but he simply never caught a bug for the electronic part of things. He went back and he put together a band with bass and drums for a while. He loved that trio format. It was very, very standard at that time. And then in the later years in his life, he had a quartet that used, bass, drums, and Gary Bartz on saxophone, primarily alto. Unfortunately, McCoy suffered a long illness, and he passed away in 2020, but not before leaving us all this beautiful music. And there is a lot of variety. I suggest you listen to him. He is one of the most inspirational and most imitated jazz pianists that we have ever had. He was a NEA, National Endowment for the Arts Jazz Master. He won 5 Grammys. He had an honorary doctorate from the Berklee School of Music. Berklee also presented that to him at the Umbria Jazz Festival in Europe, actually in Italy. I've been to that festival, and during the summer, Italy and the entire European continent lights up with jazz of the sort that pleases my ear. And so they decided that the best place to honor him was where he enjoyed it most, and that is playing music in front of people who truly appreciated his work. Alfred McCoy Tyner. The greatest body of his work is with John Coltrane, and that is no smart thing. But please take the time to listen to his solo projects, his trio projects, his quartet projects, and the things he did as sideman. He recorded 70 albums as a leader. He had 29 to 40 collaborations. He did a lot of playing. Of those, as a sideman, he had 50, and more than half of those was with John Coltrane alone. So we're talking about a man who is very influential to all of us jazz musicians, but who caught the golden goose when he joined John Coltrane's Immortal Quartet. Once again, from Philly, baby, we're talking about Mr. Alfred McCoy Tyner. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much.